us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. It's 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is Conservative commentator and now Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kearse, and also journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 4. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The MP under investigation over allegations of sexual assault says he's seeking professional medical support. The former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, resigned from his post on Thursday after being accused of groping 2 men at a private members' club while drunk. Boris Johnson suspended Mr Pincher from the Conservatives yesterday after the parliamentary watchdog launched an investigation into the incident. In a statement released this afternoon, he said he's truly sorry and that he hopes to return to his duties as an MP as soon as possible. The Foreign Office says it condemns the exploitation of prisoners of war and civilians for political purposes. It's after Russian state media claims 2 more British men have been charged with carrying out mercenary activities by a Moscow-backed separatist region in Ukraine. Aid worker Dylan Healy and military volunteer Andrew Hill are believed to be held in the self-styled Donetsk People's Republic. That's according to Russian news agency TASS. However, there's been no independent verification of the charges. TASS also reports that Sean Pinner, one of the British fighters who was sentenced to death last month, has appealed. A major search and rescue operation is underway near Hong Kong after a ship snapped in 2 and sank during a severe tropical storm. The Hong Kong Government Flying Service released this footage of a crew member being winched to safety just seconds before the vessel was overcome by waves. Authorities say 30 people were on board and 3 have been rescued so far. Searches for bowel cancer symptoms on the NHS website have gone up tenfold following the death of Dame Deborah James last week. Health Service figures show there were 23,000 hits the day after Dame Deborah died on Tuesday. That's up from 2,000 the day before. The podcaster and campaigner known as Bowel Babe passed away after a 5-year battle with the disease. The Royal College of Nursing is calling for its members to be fully involved in the government's inquiry into the COVID pandemic. It follows claims that staff were left at risk without proper guidance, effective testing or protective equipment. Meanwhile, the Office for National Statistics says weekly UK infections have gone up by more than 500,000, with 2.3 million recorded. That's the highest estimate since late April. Professor of Primary Care and Public Health at Imperial College, Azim Majid, says there's 2 factors behind the increase.
One is people are mixing much more now. This summer people are socialising with each other, going to events, parties and so on. The second factor, which is probably more important, is we're facing new subvariants of Omicron, what are known as BA4 and BA5, which are highly infectious, which spread very easily. And so these new subvariants are really driving the numbers up in the UK and in many other countries as well.
A leading animal charity has warned they are no longer accepting sick seabirds due to the risk of avian flu. Latest DEFRA figures have confirmed 102 cases of bird flu in England, with 2 cases each in Wales and Scotland earlier this year. There were currently 7 disease control zones in England. The RSPCA says it will try to respond to calls about sick birds where possible and deal with them appropriately. And former Rangers and Scotland goalkeeper Andy Gorham has died at the age of 58. Gorham revealed in May that he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. In a statement this afternoon, Rangers paid tribute to the legendary goalkeeper. He made 260 appearances for the club between 1991 and 98, winning 5 league titles and several trophies. He also won 43 caps for Scotland. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now, let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. So it's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, as we probably all agree, Princess Diana was a fantastic, compassionate woman. And I, for one, was devastated, even though I'd never met her, when I heard of her tragic passing. I'm sure those of us who were around during that time all remember where they were when they heard the news. So the Diana Awards, which recognises young people aged 9 to 25 for their social action or humanitarian work around the world, was created in her memory as a reminder of the compassion that she demonstrated. Now, in Prince Harry's recent speech to young people, now this was as he launched the online virtual Diana Awards ceremony, he hit out at a world consumed by conflict and anger, those are his words, and he urged young people to create positive change in an angry world. Now, as much as I feel for him losing his mother in the way that he did, I have to point out the hypocrisy. If the Oprah interview was anything but an example, it was definitely that of an expression of anger. And it certainly wasn't a positive move. If only he'd take his own advice. Prince Harry went on to say, "We know that our young people face unique challenges to their mental health and well-being, increasing social and economic barriers, and a world consumed by disagreement, conflict and anger. But we need to listen to you, and we need to empower you because you are our only way out of this mess." Well, I'm all for empowering people to be heard, but as I recall, during the Oprah interview, his wife Meghan Markle claimed that she couldn't get any help with her own mental health from the palace, despite being his partner and he being the spearhead of a campaign launched by the Royal Foundation alongside the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge called Heads Together, which brought 8 charity partners together to tackle the stigma and change the conversation on mental health for everyone, a campaign that he is actually still part of. So it was actually surprising that Meghan claimed she couldn't get any help, but that's a whole other story. Let's not go there. During the virtual ceremony, Prince Harry and his brother, Prince William, praised the 180 youngsters from around the world. Harry called them change makers and said that their positive actions kept the princess's voice alive. Now, again, as much as I respect all that sort of work that Prince Harry is doing, I suspect that Princess Diana, were she still with us, would be devastated to see her boys, William and Harry, at loggerheads. I imagine that she would be telling both to bury the hatchet, accept each other's choices and forgive. Life's too short. It's difficult, isn't it, to take advice from those that say one thing and then do another. The lack of compassion shown by Harry towards the Queen as Prince Philip lay ill in hospital and the subsequent accusations and media deals that followed showed no consideration for the mental health of those around him. In my view, the best gift both William and Harry could give their late mother is to put their own heads together. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. In our Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, have the Tories been in power for too long? The recent scandals involving former Conservative MPs Neil Parish and Chris Pincher, and there are others we won't mention for the terrible things they did. They've been on air for the last few days and all about Tory sleaze. So when there was negative story after negative story about those in government, what do you think? Is it time? Have they been in power for too long? Have they become complacent after 12 years? What do you think? Are standards starting to slip? And in our Royal Roundup this week, we'll be talking about my favourite royals, you know, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It has emerged that the pair missed the aircraft flypast in Buckingham Palace at last month's Platinum Jubilee. Now, that is according to the Telegraph newspaper, which learned that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were in such a rush to leave last month's Trooping of the Colour, the ceremony that they missed the display altogether. And at 5 o'clock, it'll be time for my difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to an inspirational woman, Stacey Turner, about her work to help people with their mental health. She's the CEO of It's OK to Say, which offers therapeutic services, support groups, workshops to people of all ages. And it's been supported by the likes of Chesney Hawkes, Gareth Gates and Dick and Dom. That's all coming up in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So, right, let's see what my panel make of that. Today, I'm joined by Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kurth, and journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlen. Right, first of all, Calvin, how does it feel being Reverend?
It's great. Thank you for the announcement on your show last week. That was wonderful.
It was so lovely, though. That was so lovely. I loved the bit where he touched your hair, but he couldn't quite get to it.
It's like, how do I lay my hands on him? Yeah.
And you've had your first service. How was that?
I had it the next day. It was great, actually. It was like all of these years I've been working towards this, being able to serve in active ministry, in my own church, and just get on with the job.
And you're regularly doing this, so is it every Sunday?
Yeah, every Sunday, 11 o'clock, Christchurch, Halston in London.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Right, so Calvin, I'm going to start with you, seeing as I've started with you already. So what do you think? Is it time for Harry to sort of bury the hatchet with his brother and sort of get on with it? He's quoting and talking about mental health. It can't be good for any of theirs.
Yeah, I think Prince William needs to extend the olive branch, and Harry needs to apologise, repent, and come back into the fold. He needs to toe the party line, rejoin the firm, get on with his royal duties, and stop faffing around with this celeb culture in LA. It's not good for him. It's not good for his mental health. It's not good for the rest of us.
What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I've had interesting relationships with my brothers over the years. I love very much. I'm the older brother. And it can be difficult. And if you or I or any of us had the spotlight relentlessly shone on us, then I'm sure the public would find fault with all of us for different things, because none of us are perfect. So,
as far as yourself.
Well, I'm certainly not perfect. Are you perfect?
Of course I am. I'm perfect for me, obviously.
So as far as I'm concerned, what I hold on to with Harry is, and I think he's made mistakes, and I think that interview, as you very articulately have put on various shows, with Oprah was poorly timed. But he's done a huge amount of good in this world. He's put his life on the line in Afghanistan, something I've never done. And he has also stepped up to the mark on mental health, as you say, and you give him credit for it. I do. He's done a huge amount to destigmatise mental health. As someone who suffered from mental health issues myself, having someone else out there, very famous, prepared to put his hand up, his head above the parapet, and say, I've struggled, I think that is a good thing. So I've got a lot of time for Harry. But yes, they should make friends if they can. It can be, fraternal fallouts can be incredibly painful, incredibly difficult when you have both sides absolutely certain that they are in the right. Breaking that ice is very difficult.
But what about, so because you hear people talking about mental health a lot, what about the consideration for the mental health of those around him? So he's going on about it, and I have every respect for him doing that. I think it's a great and laudable cause. But when his own wife, Meghan, who was talking about her own mental health within the palace, she said there was no one for her to go to. She's with him. Why couldn't she go to him? He was spearheading all these things, and then to actually have no real compassion. Remember the Queen and Prince Philip, he was very ill, he was in hospital, and they still went ahead with this awful interview.
I think it's a bit punchy to say that he has no real compassion. Don't forget the Queen, for whom I think we all have huge respect, seems to be a big fan of Harry. So if we were to have Her Majesty on the panel at GB News, I think she'd be sticking up for her grandson. So look, none of us are perfect, we all make mistakes. Timing wasn't right.
It was wrong.
But why are we not focusing on, perhaps because we haven't been given names, but the problems, the mental health difficulties that Meghan herself has said she faced? We're not focusing on that. We're throwing stones at Harry again.
We're not throwing stones at him. I'm just asking the question. What do you think, Nia?
Are you absolutely certain that they're actually brothers? Because we saw them.
No.
We saw them in profile there,
Yes.
and because I'd heard people, there's this conspiracy theory that Harry could be Major James Hewitt's.
But that's a conspiracy
really,
theory.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy
But it's
theory.
exactly
Did
that,
you
isn't
see
it?
the difference in their profiles?
Do you look like
and
your
also
brother?
He's ginger.
Do you have a brother?
Yeah, I do.
Do you look like your brother?
Well, there's some
Do
doubt
you
as
look
to-
like your brother?
Leo, this is
No, but-
this
we
is
should get a
beneath
picture.
you. I've got
There's
two
some
brothers,
doubt.
neither of whom are ginger. The idea that
Well, then you might not be related
I may
either.
not. I might be the milkman's son.
You're more of a strawberry
Come on.
blonde.
I'm
No,
a
he's
full-on
ginger.
ginger.
He's ginger.
Yeah, every day
He's
at school, ginger. But how
Oh,
can
yeah,
you,
but look at-
how
look
can
at
you
the
encourage
profile.
conspiracy theories?
I'm not encouraging any
He's not here
conspiracy
to
theory. I'm
answer.
just
he's
saying,
made
I'm just saying it's
nepotism.
probably true.
No, it isn't. No, listen. Hold on. We don't know anything about that. And also, that's just a conspiracy theory, exactly that. So we have to take that back from the record. But he might be.
Well,
but I don't
this
know.
could be the root of the fraternal
but-
whether or not getting on.
Do you think that it might be actually something more to do with the fact that he's kind of sold his family down the river? I mean, I think that's pretty bad. What do you think, Calvin?
Yeah. I love that Leo just throws in a grenade there.
Yeah.
I do.
We'll let it
think
go
it's
off
down
on his
look,
own.
We've seen this before with the royal family, haven't we? When they marry a divorcee American, it's always a bad story, a bad tale to be told. What we want to see is them reunited. How do we get around that? Bring the family back together. Remind them that they're brothers. Remind them that they've got a job to do for us, for the nation, to serve the country.
Calvin, are you seriously suggesting that Meghan's Americanness, or the fact that she is a divorcee
Yes,
I
yes,
am,
I am.
is at the root of these issues?
Yes.
Both of you are far more
I'll tell you
intelligent
why.
than these
I'll tell you
views
why.
that you're
Absolutely
giving.
it is, because she comes from a culture very different to ours. She doesn't understand service, duty and obligation in the sense of the royal family. She saw it as a celebrity culture. She saw it as the Kardashians, upping her fame from
How do you think Prince Andrew's doing when it comes to public service? How's Prince Andrew doing when it comes to public service?
Prince Andrew laid his life on the line for this country in the Falklands and
true.
some other tropical islands.
How's he been getting on since?
He has.
How quick was he to stop being friends with someone who was, by that stage, a convicted sex offender?
Another great aspect of Prince Andrew's character, he sticks by his friends.
Right.
Even
if they're sex
we should make him the
offenders.
next king.
No, but him being a bad person is a whole different topic entirely. We're talking about whether her Americanism has affected her attitude to the royal family, and I suggest it has.
Because Americans
she
aren't...
sees it as celebrity culture. It's completely different.
But
to what we have
Americans
over
are
there.
capable of public service as well, surely.
Not in the sense that we know it.
Really?
So our royal family is a symbol of unity, of Britishness. They don't have anything like that in America. They unite under their flag. It's not.
Which is in some ways they're a more united country than we are, precisely because they rally behind the flag.
I don't think you go along with that. I mean, I think they're very disjointed, but that's.
And we aren't.
It would be.
No,
well,
I didn't say we're not, but I think
it would be
they're
nice
a lot
if
worse.
in the UK we could rally behind the flag. I see so much division, and also the flag's almost seen as some sort of hyper far right symbol.
Which
when
one,
it's not. It's our country.
Well,
These days we rally behind the LGBT flag, don't we? The trans flag is everywhere today.
I don't really behind any flag.
It's Pride. It's the 50th anniversary of Pride. We can be happy about that. We can rally behind the Pride flag today, and tomorrow we can get back to the Union Jack.
Why not? Why can't we rally behind the Pride
moment
flag?
we see Union flags down Regent Street, people say, "Oh, this is like Nazi Germany." But the moment you see the trans flag all the way down,
Steady on, yes.
No,
everyone
he's right
celebrates.
though. But Matt, do you not remember that time though when we showed all the flags and then there was lots of young people who said that it was like Nazi Germany? But now, if it's the trans flag, everyone's saying that's fine.
I don't know whether
How
you
is
guys
that?
have been paying attention. I know you have, so it's a rhetorical question. We had the Jubilee a couple of weeks ago. I've been up and down the country doing events on stage. There are British flags, Union Jacks, proudly in gardens from Kent to Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I was in Jermyn Street yesterday getting a new suit because I'm too fat for my old suit, and
I
I'm
didn't
getting
want to
married
say
in
you
a
put
week.
on a little bit of weight,
thanks.
Matt. He has put on a little bit of weight.
But hang on.
You said it yourself, I'm just agreeing.
You're not supposed to...
I'm agreeing with you. I'm allowed to agree.
That is
I didn't bring it up, you did.
Nana. Anyway, I have put on a little bit of weight, mostly muscle. But I went to Jermyn Street yesterday, guys. This is the thrust of my point. Let's get away from my weight. Never mentioning my weight again.
You mentioned it yourself.
I used to do so many phone-ins on LBC, and we get callers after call after call. The one topic no one would ever call up about was about weight. People didn't want to talk about their own weight, so I'm doing my bit. Anyway, Jermyn Street, British flags all the way, lined up, right the way through Jermyn Street. Did I find that offensive? No, I didn't. There's a place for flags. We don't need to be offended by them.
But we agree with that, Matt. We agree with that.
Unless they're the Nazi flag.
We're just pointing out.
One or two people this week, they
conflated
conflated the pride flag with the swastika.
OK, yeah, and that was wrong, and they've understood that. But that's not the point. What we're talking about here is the actual... When there were lots of British flags out there and people did conflate that with
Some
Nazi
people
Germany.
might. That's disappointing.
But that's
it
what
does
it
have an
is.
unfortunate history. When I went to football matches in the 80s and the 90s, 1930s, the Union Jack was a symbol of the national flag. We need to reclaim it, I agree.
We have already reclaimed it.
To bring them together, why don't, Calvin, would you be happy with this if we took the Union Jack and added the trans triangle to it? Would that be a...
No, it wouldn't. No, it would not.
What is your problem with gay people or
He
trans
hasn't got a
people?
problem with gay people.
I've never said I have an issue with gay people.
Why can't they have a flag?
Sorry, it's my show, and I'll decide who answers. He hasn't got a problem with it. I know that for a fact. I think it's something...
But why are we not allowed to have the gay flag?
Many of my gay friends have a problem with the pride flag, the same problem that I have. In that it's a political agenda, it's a political movement that it shouldn't be flown above any institution in our country, any public institution. They should all fly the Union flag because that's the thing that unites all of us. And these movements say they are inclusive. They say they want to welcome people, but the moment you say you have an issue with it, you are excluded. We saw that this week with Halifax.
Why do you have an issue with it?
They took that political flag, put it on their logo, and people said, this makes me feel uncomfortable. And they said, well, we want to be inclusive, so you can leave our bank. That's the opposite of inclusivity.
We'll leave the last word to Calvin. Right, so you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online, and on digital radio still to come. The Great British Debate this hour, that wasn't it. I'm asking, have the Tories been in power for too long? After 12 years of Conservative rule, the party is in the position where bad stories keep repeating themselves. MPs seem to be breaking on a daily basis. So I want to ask whether you think the Tories have become complacent after a long spell in government. I'll be speaking to former Conservative MP Edwina Currie and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Send us your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tell me what you think by Twitter @GBNews. I've got a poll up right now asking you that question. Have the Tories been in power too long? Cast your vote, but first, it's time for some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be showery for many, with the heaviest and most frequent rain across Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in the southwest of England, and after a pretty wet morning for some due to a front passing through, you can expect showers to end the day. In the southeast, that front will be moving across, but it has broken up somewhat, so many will just see some showery rain for a time. Across Wales, we can expect further showers, perhaps a few heavy ones too. They'll start to ease as we go through the evening and especially overnight. There'll also be showers across the West Midlands as we go through the evening. They should be fairly scattered, so there'll be some drier and perhaps brighter breaks in between. It looks like there'll be fewer showers around the northeast, but still a few though, so although it's looking mostly dry here, don't rule out some rain at times. A wet picture across much of Scotland. Here the showers are likely to merge into longer spells of rain, especially across western parts with the risk of some thunder. A scattering of showers for Northern Ireland as well. Some heavy ones are likely in the east at first, then there may be a drier spell for a time. Further showery rain is expected overnight, especially for Scotland and Northern Ireland, whilst England and Wales should be drier. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
So it is fast approaching 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, have the Tories been in power for too long? Now, the party had a difficult few months with a number of scandals involving its MPs, starting with Owen Paterson lobbying that scandal last year. Then there's been other ones, the suspension of Neil Paris for watching porn in Parliament, and the former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, over claims that he drunkenly assaulted 2 men. So I want to ask, we've missed one out there as well, so I want to ask if these scandals are a symptom of complacency in government after the same party has been in power for more than 12 years. In the Great British Debate this hour, what are your thoughts? Have the Tories been in power for too long? I'm joined now by the former Conservative MP, Edwina Currie. Edwina, thank you so much for joining me. Now, Edwina, what do you think? Has your party, do you think they've dropped the ball? Have they been in government for way too long?
Well, I tell you what it feels like, Nana, but we actually haven't had a Conservative government for very long. I mean, we didn't win a majority in 2010. David Cameron was governing with a coalition. It certainly felt like we had a Lib Dem government for most of that time. And then we actually won an election in 2015, and bingo, we're immediately into Brexit. Well, not that long afterwards, we lost David Cameron. We had the miserable 3 years of Theresa May. Last Boris Johnson got the leadership, and we had a general election in December 2019, which is now quite a long time ago. And hey presto, we have a majority, and that's great. For 3 whole months, we had a Tory government, and we got Brexit. And then we had COVID for 2 years. And we no sooner coming out of COVID, then we go into the Ukraine war and all the economic problems that has caused. So I'm waiting for us to have a Conservative government with a majority, with some Tory ideas, and a reasonable period of time in which to carry them out.
Well, I mean, that would be interesting if they could just get their act together, because it seems to me all this infighting. I don't think in my time, and I'm old, but in my time I've seen quite a few governments, and I just don't recall ever seeing so much infighting and so much sort of sleaze on this sort of level. I'm just wondering why on earth, you know, do you think it's? I just can't understand why the Tory party are behaving in this manner, because they're in, and if they don't stop, they will be out.
Well, I totally agree with you. One of the things that the Conservative Party always well understood is a degree of loyalty. And in fact, a lot of people showed it to Theresa May when she was Prime Minister and leader of the party. She seems to be leading the charge not to be loyal to her successor. And I think her behaviour is absolutely disgraceful. So, you know, you haul her on this programme, Nana, and you tick her off. I totally agree with you on that. I'm slightly older than you, I think, and was in government during the 1980s. I remember when Margaret Thatcher was facing all sorts of problems, all sorts of difficulties. She lost Cecil Parkinson, her party chairman, because his girlfriend produced a baby and then produced a book, and it was all very naughty indeed. I tell you what, we had a better class of misbehaviour in those days. At least Cecil Parkinson was good looking, which you couldn't say about the 2 guys whose pictures you've just put up on the screen, who have been disgracing the party recently. But no, I think it's just been that events have been much bigger than any particular. There you go, you've got them again now. What an ugly pair, my goodness. And one with the name Pincher. You couldn't make it up, a lot of that, could you? It's partly, I think, that the government has been not derailed, but has been really pushed to one side. COVID meant that a Conservative government had to spend billions. And instead of encouraging people to be working hard and striving and doing well in order to better their position, which is true Thatcherism, if you like, it was having to pay people to stay at home and do nothing. And that's become a bit of a bad habit amongst some people who really don't seem to want to get back to work, including about half our civil servants, which is not conducive to efficient government whatsoever. And we've also found our taxes having to go up, partly to pay for it. And this month, some of them will be coming down as we look after the low-paid better, and they will be paying no national insurance contributions in future. And I'm all in favour of that. But really, we need to get a Tory government before you can ask me if we've got a tired Tory government, because we haven't had one much at all.
Well, Edwina, thank you so much for that. It's really good to talk to you. That's Edwina Curry. She's a former Conservative MP. Right, let's have a chat with Scarlett Maguire now. She's a former Labour advisor. Scarlett, welcome. Now, isn't the reason that we've had a Tory government for so long simply because Labour have been completely unelectable for such a long time?
Well, I certainly think that the last two leaders, the electorate decided not to elect them, so that's fine. But look, we've got a Conservative government at the moment with a Prime Minister who says the rules are not for me. So the latest scandal, right, Christopher Pincher, he was told not to make him a deputy chief whip. There'd already been a scandal about him. There were stories swirling around. There was a problem with drink. So what does he do? He makes him deputy chief whip, and the guy has to resign. And then what does he say? He says, he said, sorry, that's enough. And it's only pressure from women Conservative MPs that made him actually lose the Conservative whip. And this has gone on and on. Owen Paterson found guilty by the Privileges Committee. What happened? Boris Johnson tried to change the rules. Priti Patel found guilty of bullying. Boris Johnson says, I'm not going to take it. And so he loses his first ethics advisor. This is a man who has lost 2 ethics advisors. We have a real problem in government with this particular government, and with this particular Prime Minister, and it's really not good for the country.
Because you know, all the things you're perfectly right to say that, but what about the Labour Party? I mean, that's not exactly clean either. I mean, all you have to look at is the bullying accusations against Liam Byrne or Claudia Webb's harassment charges. Absolutely.
So what happened with Claudia Webb? She lost the whip in the party. There was not, and frankly, she should stand down as an MP.
Rife throughout the party. I mean, there's the anti-Semitism that's been rife throughout the party as well, or there were accusations of it.
Nana, it is not rife through. What I'm talking about is there are bad apples in both parties, right? What I'm talking about is a Prime Minister who says, he's my friend, or in Priti's case, she's my friend, and therefore the rules don't apply to us. And actually, Liam Byrne was suspended. Claudia Webb was pushed out. There is no question. There is a difference. And actually, there has to be a difference. And it's really, really important to the people of Britain. I mean, if they say, oh, well, if you're a friend of Boris's, then anything is okay, then what sort of a government have we got?
Well, I suppose you can't blame a Prime Minister for having people around him that he trusts and wanting to keep those people around. I think anyone would do that. But do you think then, I'm presuming the answer, I know the answer to this, do you think the Tories have been, the reason why they're, in a sense, maybe be complacent? I mean, they've been in for a long time, they had an 80-seat majority. Do you think do you think they've been in power for too long? That's why the complacency seems to have set in.
I mean, this is the third Prime Minister, right? So and Boris Johnson tried to say, you know, I am reinventing myself. I am the first. I'm not part of the thing. I think we have a particular problem with this Prime Minister who thinks the rules are for other people and the rules are for little people and they're not for his friends. And I really, really think that if you think somebody has been found guilty of bullying and you think it's okay, and what we do is we get the wagons round her to keep her safe. If you think that it's okay to make somebody a deputy chief whip, which means they're in charge of discipline when there is already a discipline problem, there is a problem that you try and change the rules because somebody's been found guilty. I mean, this is what we're talking about.
Well, I think a lot of the parties probably attempt to do that sort of thing. But Scarlett, it's always a pleasure, as ever. Scarlett Maguire, she's a former Labour advisor. Right, well, let's see. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Phoebe says, no, they haven't had a chance to do everything that they wanted to do due to COVID for 2 years. Everything has been on hold. I think they have done very well to do what they've done so far. All these critics moaning wouldn't have done any better. I don't think so. Toby says, excuse me, in some aspects, yes. However, presently, there's no credible, suitable alternative, is there? Terry says, why not ask the same question of the Labour in Wales and the SNP in Scotland? Well, that's a good point. We'll probably touch on that as well. Keep your thoughts coming. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. You can even download our GB News app where you can find out everything that's happening here. Now, after the break, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, have the Tories been in power too long? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel. Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kurse, and also journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlen. First, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's almost 25 to 5. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to get you up to date on GB News. The MP Chris Pincher, who's under investigation over allegations of sexual assault, says he's seeking professional medical support. The former Deputy Chief Whip resigned from his post on Thursday after being accused of groping 2 men at a private members' club while drunk. Boris Johnson suspended Mr Pincher from the Conservative Party yesterday after the parliamentary watchdog launched an investigation into the incident. The Foreign Office says it condemns the exploitation of prisoners of war and civilians for political purposes. It's after Russian state media claim 2 more British men have been charged with carrying out mercenary activities by a Moscow-backed separatist region in Ukraine. Aid worker Dylan Healy and military volunteer Andrew Hill are believed to be held in the self-styled Donetsk People's Republic. That's according to the Russian news agency TASS. However, there's been no independent verification of the charges. A leading animal charity has warned they are no longer accepting sick seabirds due to the risk of avian flu. Latest DEFRA figures show there are 102 confirmed cases of bird flu in England, with 2 cases each in Wales and Scotland earlier this year. The RSPCA says it will try to respond to calls about sick birds where possible and deal with them appropriately. And pride parades are taking place across the UK today. Crowds wearing face paint, glitter, jewels and sequins are taking part in Pride in London, the first since the outbreak of the pandemic. More than 1 million people are expected to descend on the capital for the event, marking the 50th anniversary of the UK's first Pride parade. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. We'll get back to Nana in just a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go? Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
So welcome back. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now we return to our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, do you think the Tories have been in power for too long? And the Conservatives have been in government for 12 years. They've experienced a number of different scandals involving bad behaviour of its MPs over the last few months. So what do you think? Have they become complacent? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kirst, and also journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin. I've got to come to you, Calvin, first, seeing as you're Reverend Calvin and you're a Conservative commentator. What do you think? Have they?
Unfortunately, yes. But
really?
There's no alternative. There is no opposition, and this is why politics is so stale. It's not just the Tories, it's all of them. They're such low calibre. There's no moral value, there's no ethics in the Houses of Parliament. We've got West Streeting issuing death threats on Twitter. We've got Claudia Webb being convicted of harassment. We've got the SNP MP who sexually harassed a 19-year-old. We've got Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. We've got Fiona Alasangu, who was tagged and turned up to Parliament with a blooming ankle tag. We've got Rob Roberts and the scandal around him. We've got the MP who shall not be named yet, who was arrested and is out on bail for suspicion of indecent assault. We've got Neil Parish browsing tractor porn. And we've got Boris Johnson himself, the Prime Minister, fined over the pandemic. None of these people.
Keir Starmer currently going through the whole thing. We can't speak about that, really.
The whole lot of them. We need to clear the swamp.
That said she wasn't in the party. And it just goes on. Matthew.
I thought it was absolutely hilarious that Edwina Currie, who comes from the John Major era, you remember the John Major government died partly because people are fed up with the Tories and partly because of sleaze. There was plenty of infighting in the Tory party towards the end of the Thatcher years. Actually, the government of Gordon Brown, that was the inheritor of the Tony Blair government, that blew itself out. And there were the TBGBs. You remember in the 90s and 2000s, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, and was he going to give it? So this is not something particularly new. I do think the Tories have been in government for too long. Edwina said they've been in government effectively for about 3 months. That's nonsense. She said there was a Lib Dem government for the first 5 years. Actually,
well, she's right there.
There was a coalition, but actually what happened, we saw the most extraordinary financial measures that meant that huge numbers of people, in my view, suffered unnecessarily in this country. That was coming from the Tories rather than from the Lib Dems. Austerity. This, though,
but
really...
austerity was the result of the Labour government, the previous Labour government.
No, it wasn't.
Remember they left the thing and said that there's no money left. I mean,
yeah, that was poor taste and a poor joke by the Labour minister.
But austerity was a result of the previous government that they were trying to repel, was it not?
No, it wasn't. Austerity was a consequence of a global recession that started in America.
But we can't absolve all responsibility for... I mean, look, there was a subprime fiasco that happened, and I understood all that. I was there at the time. I saw what happened to house prices and the whole thing. But there was a combination there. It was the government of the time, whilst that was happening, cannot absorb all responsibility of that, and that was a Labour government.
The question was whether the Tories needed to implement the policies of austerity in the way that Osborne and Cameron did. I don't think they needed to go nearly so quickly or nearly so hard. But coming back to the main question, which is your question, have they been in power for too long? Look, I think Scarlett was spot on. It's not even so much that they've been in power for so long, although we have a cyclical system in this country and that people get fed up. It's that Boris Johnson, and not just about parties, thinks it's one rule for him and a different rule for you guys.
So you're laying it on Boris Johnson. What do you think?
I think the party has become complacent, but as Calvin says, there isn't an alternative. The only strength the Tories have got at the moment is the uselessness and unelectability of the Labour Party. It's a nonsense, but I mean, Matthew's got a point as well. Corruption and sleaze brought down John Major's government, and even though Boris delivered a huge majority at the last election, so 80 seats, the reasons that people voted for Boris, I don't think they'd vote for him again. We've seen massive, like the highest levels of immigration ever under in the last year. And this Conservative Party doesn't have conservative values. And I think the culture of sleaze and of graft, COVID gave them such an opportunity to give their mates contracts for PPE and graft away all that taxpayers' money. That culture of sleaze and corruption, that starts at the top. So we need a leader who actually embodies conservative values and is moral and principled.
So
I think Calvin, let Calvin do it.
I was going to say that's the soundest thing you've ever said.
Listen, who do you suggest? Because we look and the whole thing is a mess. I mean, even the Labour Party, they have not provided a decent alternative at all.
Why do you say that?
Hang on, let me finish. Well, because I was about to say it, but you just stopped me. OK, so the Labour Party have not provided a decent alternative at all. Keir Starmer is currently under investigation over Beergate. He lied about Andrew Rayner being at a party. They have provided nothing as an alternative as to what they would do in power. Most people don't trust them. So that's the reason. That is the reason why the Conservatives are still here.
Hang on, you're conflating a lot of things.
I don't think so. That's my view.
Well, I'm giving my view. My view is that Keir Starmer lacks charisma. He's not the sort of person that lots of people are going to get out of bed for in the morning, are they?
Well, I think we.
But in my view,
yes.
I don't think they get into bed for him either.
I don't know. I think he was quite handsome in his day. But listen,
in his day.
Hang on.
Maybe.
What's going to happen? Look, it's not a particularly strong Labour front bench. I agree. And you mentioned a death threat that Wes Streeting allegedly put out there. I think a tweet from 2009 was dug up by someone recently. It wasn't seriously trying to kill anyone or threaten to kill anyone. It was an ill-advised tweet. I didn't like the look of it. It disappointed me because I'm quite a fan of Wes Streeting. Basically, I think he's a sort of a good lad. But listen, Keir Starmer, in my view, you all shout me down, is perfectly decent. He ran the criminal justice system as far as Crown prosecution was concerned, prosecuting bad guys and women over a long period of time. He's responsible. The Beergate situation, he had a beer, which if he broke the...
so we can't really talk about that.
I think we can talk about it.
Well, not really, no.
He's not going to go...
we have to leave that. We can't go into too much detail, but the Beergate, you give me an overview as to what...
All I'll say on that is that he said, and yes, it took him time to do so, but he doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He said that if he is fined, he will resign. You can't get a bigger contrast to the Prime Minister of the day.
Well, we'll see about that, but you can set your own standards as to what you'll do if an outcome occurs, and we'll see whether he actually does and see what happens, because we don't know. And so I don't think we can make a judgment until we see the end of that.
I didn't bring up Beergate. One of you guys did. I'm just defending him.
Good.
Well, it's always interesting when people say, who's the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. He put away a lot of bad guys. He didn't put away Jimmy Savile, though, did he?
Or the grooming gang.
He didn't put away Jimmy Savile, but when that was brought up by Boris Johnson as throwing a dead cat into the ring, as you well know, and there was a huge furore. Everyone watching today, they all have seen it in the news and so forth. It was widely accepted that he was not directly responsible for the failure, which was an egregious, disastrous failure to put Jimmy Savile away. He was not directly responsible.
Ahead of something.
He took responsibility. He took responsibility.
But you can't say that Boris Johnson is then responsible for everything that his party does, which is disrespectful. When something under your watch goes wrong, then you say, I can't be responsible for that.
Boris Johnson took part of the parties himself.
Yeah, but it can't be a double standard. That's a double standard.
But if you're in charge of something... Did he apologise?
Yeah, well, yes, finally. But listen, if
you're... at the time.
But if you're in charge of something and it goes wrong, then you accept responsibility of it, as should Boris if he does something wrong as well. I don't see what's wrong with that. But let's see what you think, because the show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, your opportunity to be on the show, and tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Let's go over to, should we go to Tregoth Tea, to Jonathan in Cornwall. Jonathan. Hello, Jonathan. I'm waiting for the cup. Where's the tea? You've always got tea.
Oh, yes, we always do a cup of tea for you, Nana.
Even out there in the wild. So what do you think, Jonathan? Do you think they've been in power too long and they're becoming a bit complacent with everything?
Well, there's always that danger, but I've been out in France this week flogging the best British tea and talking to a lot of people overseas about all the interesting stuff, and everyone loves Boris. Not everyone, of course, but they all find him entertaining. No one's bored by him, and I think your question was, are people tired of this government? And I think they mostly see the Prime Minister, and you can't be bored of Boris. It's impossible. I'm really hoping he stays in power for 3 terms, because I'm taking a bunch of farmers to Japan in October to sell our tea on bullet trains, and when I did a tasting with him recently, he said he'd come with me in October, so we really hope he's in power for at least 3 more months. But I reckon he could do 3 terms.
Yeah. Well, so does he. So we'll see. Jonathan, thank you very much for your contribution, as ever. Enjoy your tea. Jonathan, he's always got a cup of tea. He's right, though. I'm a herbal tea girl. That's the thing. I like my herbal tea.
Oh, I love tea.
I don't drink caffeine.
Oh, great for me.
No, it does my head in caffeine. Yeah, so what do we think? To be honest, I think, looking at it, that... yeah, they've been in power for a while, but I actually slightly agree with Edwina that they haven't really had a chance to really shine because of all the things that have come in their way.
Yeah, but I don't know. Breaking the rules.
They keep
breaking the rules.
Hang on, sorry. I don't know whether any of the others would do a better job. I don't think they would, but you're saying... What are you saying?
I thought Scarlett was spot on. He tried to change the rules over Owen Paterson. He was warned about this Deputy Chief Whip, who obviously shouldn't have been appointed. He broke the rules himself. He's repeatedly dishonest. I saw a clip, just bear with me, on Twitter recently.
10 seconds.
Yes, 10 seconds. Saw a clip of him at the conference last year, I think it was. He got out of a Range Rover and then jogged to the entrance so people would think he was jogging.
So?
Yeah. Why would you tell the truth when a lie can do?
As a Scotsman, I thought that was a full workout.
Well, so what? So what? What does that tell? It doesn't tell me anything.
No, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Like all politicians use PR and spin and all the rest of it. I'm not too worried about that. And as for Edwina Curry's claims that they've only had 3 months in power, like no government gets to just have an easy ride. There's always crises to deal with. That's what a government's for.
But this was a bit extreme. None of them had a pandemic. Pandemic was a big thing. I mean, that was a global thing beyond anyone's control. Absolutely beyond.
Yeah, and I think in different situations we might be seeing Boris in a different light. But the thing that matters now is the Conservatives being electable again, because if Labour get back in, they'll put a grooming gang on every corner.
No, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't.
I think all of these they need to do two things. One is that anyone involved in any bit of sleaze needs a forced resignation. They need to be gone straight away. Anyone that's committed a crime, impeded on the pandemic, anyone who's done anything wrong needs to go. And secondly, they need to fix immigration. If they do those two things, they'll be in for a whole other term.
There'll be very few people left if that happens. Listen, today I'm asking, have the Tories been in power too long? And lots of you been getting in touch with your views. Steve says the real Tories have not been in power for too long. Post-Blair, they became con-socialists. Yep. Boris is a con-socialist. We need the Thatcher-like Conservatives back again.
You're here.
Dave says the Conservatives have wasted their time and their majority. They could have done so much, but they haven't. Yeah. Wasted opportunity. Angie says, why does everything the Conservative Party do and say find itself in the national media? Because they're in government. Paul says, not much can be done as Labour knows nothing but how to attack. Once Starmer and Rayner are gone, things in the House may settle a little. Marianne says, no, we need some perspective here. There are 359 Tory MPs and only some involved in sleaze. The majority haven't, as far as we know. I do agree that there has been far too much infighting. They need to put their egos to one side and just get on with it. Absolutely. I hear. I'm with you on that. Now, there is a poll up on Twitter right now throughout the chat. I'm asking, have the Tories been in power for too long? What do you think? What do you think the numbers are? Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's a difficult question. It's because they haven't been in power for too long.
26%.
Just give us a number, Leo. It's not that difficult. Number between 1 and 100.
54%.
Right. What do you think?
I think 75% will say no, they haven't.
34% say yes, they have been in power for too long. 66% say no. I think you were the nearest man. Yeah. Well done. Very good. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll get the latest news from the royal household with the former butler to Prince Charles, Harry and William, Grant Harold. We'll also speak to an incredible woman who's helping some people improve their mental health. Stacey Turner is the CEO of It's OK to Say, which is supported by the likes of Chesney Hawkes, Gareth Gates and Dick and Dom. First, a short break.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. And now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just fast approaching 55 minutes after 4 o'clock. Well, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. It's been revealed by The Telegraph that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle missed the flight past at the Jubilee weekend because they were so keen to lead the Tripping the Colour ceremony. But why? Well, who better to delve into what all of that is Grant Harold. He's a former royal butler to Prince Charles, William and Harry. He joins me now. Grant! Oh, where are you? That looks
Good afternoon, Nana.
Good afternoon. Where are you? That looks nice. Where are you?
I'm at the Love Cheese Live, which is a cheese show. And I've got some of the award-winning Shropshire Blue here, so lots of cheese.
So you just want to bite into that and go like that?
I do. I've eaten so much cheese, Nana, I couldn't have any more.
So what's going on with these guys? Why did they leave so quickly? Why did they not at least stay?
I don't know. I mean, it's quite bizarre because with these kind of family lunches or any kind of these events, even though they're not to be on the balcony, they still normally take part in the kind of what goes on behind the scenes, which is the lunches, because there'll be other members of the royal family that have been invited. So if there's a couple of reasons. It could be to do with the ongoing rift, if it is ongoing, or it could be as simple as maybe they had another engagement that they had to go to. But the tricky part with that is, and it's possible, but it's just when it's the Queen, traditionally when the Queen has a lunch or something, you're kind of expected to go. In fact, when I used to get invited to anything, the invitation would say you're commanded by the Queen to kind of attend, and you can't really, without good reason, you've got to kind of attend. So it's all a bit bizarre, really.
Maybe nobody wanted them there. Maybe it was more like, well, don't let those lot stay. It'll just be, to be honest, they did their little bit and there really wasn't much more for them to do. So I don't mind that they left, even if it wasn't a private jet and they've been going on about climate change. Now, what about this one, Nicola Sturgeon? She met with the Queen, although I'm surprised Nicola could show her face, especially after all that break up the union nonsense. But she met the Queen at at her Hollywood Palace, didn't she?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. This is a fellow Scotsman. Obviously, up in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister, obviously this week or last week announced her plans for another referendum, and then almost immediately soon after, the following day, met with the Queen. And I did think at the time that's going to be a rather tricky meeting, because especially after kind of making her plans and what she wants to do, and suddenly then meeting with the Queen. So can you imagine actually being part of that conversation? Or I wonder if the Queen even brought it up, or maybe it's something they avoided.
It does seem a bit much, doesn't it, really? I mean, because Nicola Sturgeon is going to, apparently she's given us that date in October for the referendum, and then obviously she wants to break up the United Kingdom, which is something that the Queen is very, obviously that she's the head of all of that. She doesn't want to see that happen, because then she'll no longer, if that happens, she will no longer be the monarch for Scotland, is that not right?
Well, apparently, Nicola Sturgeon has said, I don't think there's any plans for her not to continue to be the Queen of future royals. I think the idea is she wants to be a separate country, but still have, and this is what was said at the time, that still have the monarch as the head of state. So, but again, who knows? I mean, if it did end up going independent, it's possible that you could have a president, or male or female.
Potentially. And of course, this week we had the whole Ghislaine Maxwell business as well. I mean, obviously, Andrew's been distanced from all of that. I'm just wondering, what's happened to Andrew these days? Is he totally out of the loop with everything now? Do we know?
Well, I don't know if you remember, Nana, but a few weeks ago, obviously, he wanted to kind of be, apparently, according to reports, wanted to kind of come back. And I don't see how that's possible with everything that's happened. I can't see that. I think I said to you before, we will see him. I mean, he's still going to be invited to different events. We will see him possibly accompanying the Queen, but we won't see him in that official. We shouldn't. I don't think we will see him in that official role going forward. I know they say time is a healer, but I think with this one, it's slightly different. And also, the royal family I think it is going to get smaller. I think that is the plans of Prince Charles and Prince William, to make it a smaller family. And this kind of makes it that little bit easier with other members of the royal family with this kind of situation going on to actually say, you know what, we don't need to have them as part of it. And this is the way of making it that smaller family going forward.
He's done it to himself, and actually probably the best that he doesn't get back in there. So what are you doing then? You're off. Are you doing a speech today at this cheese thing or what?
Well, I've got, if I may, I've got to quickly show you. I've still got a little audience here. I don't know if you can just see just inside him. There's a little audience there. It's actually the chairman and his family.
He's giving me a wave. Look at this wave. Look, go back there. He's giving me a wave. Hello.
Yeah, do you want to give a little wave to Nana?
Give me a wave.
Give a little wave. There we go.
All right, they can see me. Wonderful.
They've actually stayed, so that they've been really kind. It can help me do this today, and I said he's the chairman, and it's been amazing. I've been working with Michael Perry White, Matt Tebbett, so they hit one of the hairy bikers, Cy Kings. It's been really good fun. I've been hosting while I've been here, so it's been really good fun. Something different for the Royal Butler to do.
Well, we look forward to getting you back in the studio, Grant. Thank you very much for joining us. That is Grant Harold. He's a former royal butler to Prince Charles, Prince William and Prince Harry. Don't forget, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, have the Tories been out of power for too long? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views, and it's overwhelming. A lot of people think that they haven't. Right, stay with me. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. So it's 5 o'clock. This is GB News. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And coming up in the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics hitting the headlines right now. On the way, we have difficult conversations. We'll be talking mental health. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The MP under investigation over allegations of sexual assault says he's seeking professional medical support. The former Deputy Chief Whip, Chris Pincher, resigned from his post on Thursday after being accused of groping two men at a private members' club while drunk. Boris Johnson suspended Mr Pincher from the Conservative Party yesterday after the parliamentary watchdog launched an investigation into the incident. In a statement released this afternoon, he said he's truly sorry and that he hopes to return to his duties as an MP as soon as possible. The Foreign Office says it condemns the exploitation of prisoners of war and civilians for political purposes. It's after two more British men have been charged with carrying out mercenary activities by pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine. According to the Russian news agency TASS, aid worker Dylan Healy and military volunteer Andrew Hill have both been charged and held in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. However, the charges haven't been independently verified. TASS also reports that Sean Pinner, a British fighter who was sentenced to death last month, has appealed. Hundreds of people have gathered for a vigil dedicated to Zara Alina, who was killed in East London last week. Members of the 35-year-old's family led the crowd as they traced the walk home she would have taken after a night out in Ilford. The law graduate was found with multiple serious injuries after she was attacked in the early hours of Sunday. A major search and rescue operation is underway near Hong Kong after a ship snapped in two and sank during a severe tropical storm. The Hong Kong Government Flying Service released this footage of a crew member being winched to safety just seconds before the vessel was overcome by waves. Authorities say 30 people were on board and 3 have been rescued so far. Searches for bowel cancer symptoms on the NHS website have gone up tenfold following the death of Dame Deborah James last week. Health Service figures show there were 23,000 hits the day after Dame Deborah died on Tuesday, up from 2,000 the day before. The podcaster and campaigner known as Bowel Babe passed away after a 5-year battle with the disease. The Royal College of Nursing is calling for its members to be fully involved in the government's inquiry into the COVID pandemic. It follows claims that staff were left at risk without proper guidance, effective testing or protective equipment. Meanwhile, the Office for National Statistics says weekly UK infections have gone up by more than 500,000, with 2.3 million recorded. That's the highest estimate since late April. Professor of Primary Care and Public Health at Imperial College, Azim Majid, said there's 2 factors behind the increase.
One is people are mixing much more now. You know, the summer people are socialising with each other, going to events, parties and so on. The second factor, which is probably more important, is we're facing new subvariants of Omicron, what are known as BA4 and BA5, which are highly infectious, which spread very easily. And so these new subvariants are really driving the numbers up in the UK and in many other countries as well.
A leading animal charity has warned they are no longer accepting sick seabirds to risk of avian flu. Latest DEFRA figures show 102 confirmed cases of bird flu are in England, and 2 cases each were found in Wales and Scotland earlier this year. There are currently 7 disease control zones in England. The RSPCA says it will try to respond to calls about sick birds where possible and deal with them appropriately. And parades are taking place across the UK today to mark the 50th anniversary of the country's first Pride. Crowds wearing face paint, glitter, jewels and sequins are taking part in Pride in London, the first since the outbreak of the pandemic. As more than 1 million people descend on the capital for celebrations, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said the city is a beacon for love.
I'm quite clear. We're marching today for an open, inclusive, accepting world. We're marching today for those in Oslo, those who haven't made the progress we've made. We're also marching today for love. I'm quite clear. Here in this great city, we should be a beacon of inclusiveness, of openness, but also a place where you can be free to be who you want to be and free to love who you want to love.
This is GB News. We bring you more news as it happens now. Let's get back to Nana.
Good afternoon. So it's just coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kearse, and journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadling. Still to come in our difficult conversation, I speak to an incredible woman who's helping people improve their mental health. Stacey Turner is the CEO of It's OK to Say, which is supported by the likes of Chesley Hawkes, Gareth Gates and Dick and Tom. Coming up in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police pander to Pride? Organisers of today's Pride Festival in London asked the Met Police not to attend the event in uniform. Now, this is due to their concerns that there is homophobia throughout the force. Now, the Pride celebrations are still ongoing in London, so I'm asking, should police pander to Pride? You can send me your thoughts now, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at gbnews. So now it is time for my difficult conversation. And today we're talking about mental health. Now, a fantastic charity called It's OK to Say encourages people to speak up and put things in place to support daily needs rather than when things escalate. Mental health is something that we often hear about in the news. So today we're going to talk about why it's important that we don't bottle things up and why we don't talk about it. I'm delighted to say that the CEO of It's OK to Say, Stacey Turner, joins me now. Stacey, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So talk to me about It's OK to Say. Now, this is your charity. You set it up. Why?
So I partnered with the Hearts Advertiser, and we launched a campaign to encourage people to, make mental health part of their everyday. And I don't mean just knowing I have mental health. It's becoming more mindful of that, what we can do to put things, to make every day much easier in terms of recognising what we need, reaching out for support if necessary, what we need to perhaps put in place so that we can live happier and consider our well-being more.
What about your own personal stories, though? Because, of course, most people that I meet who are set up things like this have their own sort of personal experience of mental health.
Yeah, so I was always destined for a really nurturing route, most definitely. And my background is rich in psychology. And I very sadly lost my father at the age of 13. And it is a tragic story. And following that, obviously, I spent my teenage years sort of trying to work out why and the difficulties of that.
Can I ask what happened? Because you said it's a tragic story.
Of
what
course,
happened?
I don't mind talking about it. People know that because I want people to learn from what I've been through. And my dad took his own life, and it was very sudden. He'd made a first attempt, and unfortunately, even though he went into hospital, very sadly, he never, ever recovered, and he was adamant that that's what he wanted. He couldn't cope with the own demons in his mind, and he just got, completely consumed by it, and sadly, he took his life very suddenly.
And what was that like for you then? Because obviously you're growing up.
Yeah.
You're 13. That's a very impressionable age. My daughter, she's 13. She's literally turned into Kevin the teenager. She has. I mean, at 12 and a half it started.
Yeah.
And at 13 she's like, where's the food in the fridge?
Yeah,
it's gawking around. That must have been very hard for you going through all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an extremely difficult age, and that's why I say I spent my teenage years really, really struggling. So I am someone that knows as well what it's like to need help and support, as well as know the value that help and support adds to your life. So coming out the other side of that. But my following my father's death, it was just awful. I watched the impact that it had on everyone around me. Yeah. And I am a big empath. And so even as a young girl, I really took that on myself and tried to put my own grief aside. And I think I got to my early 20s and realised that I hadn't grieved for my father properly because I was trying to pick up the pieces and manage what was going on around me. And that was a lot of mental health problems associated with that, friends and family breaking down, not coping with the situation. And so, yeah, it was quite horrible.
It's been very hard to deal with.
Yes, it was.
But you come through and you said that you were already destined for a nurturing role.
Yeah.
And possibly, did you have brothers and sisters? Did you have brothers and sisters? Did you have to look after them? And did you have to be sort of like almost, and your mother as well? Was she around at the time, and did you have to support her through it too?
Yeah, my mum and my dad separated when I was 3, and but that didn't change anything. Yeah. That didn't change her grief and the love that she remembered that she shared with my father and things like that. So Mum found it very difficult, and I shut down and didn't speak for a very long period of time, and of course that was very difficult for everyone to handle. And I also had, I have a half-sister as well, and there's 10.5 years difference between us. So it was all difficult.
Yeah.
So a lot of kind of just getting through, juggling through. No one knew what to do, and of course now we know more than we did then, and there's much more in place than there was then.
So this is a charity that you set up. It's OK to Say. What do you mean by that? Is it it's okay to talk about mental health? It's okay to say that you have mental health? Is that how you say it these days?
Yeah.
There's something.
Absolutely, it's in the name because we're also busting stigmas. We don't sweep things under the carpet anymore, and we want people to live a better life. And so what we are saying outright is, no matter what you're going through, what the situation is, no matter how old you are, it is okay to say. And we're here for you, and we want you to reach out for us.
So who, because I understand you talk to a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Is it sort of focusing on everybody though, and anyone?
Yeah.
And you've got quite a few supporters. You've got the likes of Chesney Hawkes, and some famous people actually getting on board with this. I'm sure I saw somebody really, really famous, like, what was it, Helen Mirren or someone like that?
Mel Goodroich.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful Bob Golding. So our head office is based in St Albans, and as many people know, he was the famous Dame for the Christmas panto for many years, and we became to know each other locally, and he decided that he would kindly get behind the charity and support us. And of course, we came from a campaign, so as I said before, our journey has been, it's a beautiful story within itself, and it's so lovely because even though I've been the one leading it, it's been driven by the community, and we've evolved by listening and finding out what people want, why they want it. How can we be better? What can we do for you?
So you offer support to people and they get in touch, through a website or something like that?
Yeah, we're about to launch a phone line as well. Because of the pandemic, we had to take a bit of a step back and we did everything online like everyone. But we are catching up and we are busy, but we don't want that to stop people reaching out to us because we are nationwide. And our network is growing so significantly in terms of the clinicians that we can offer people. And if people are happy to have support online, then you can be anywhere in the country. So we offer one-to-one support. We offer family group therapy workshops. We also offer support groups. We are known to instigate campaigns. We illuminated the St Albans Cathedral not so long ago for Mental Health Awareness Week, and every year it's illuminated in our charity's colour. And we always get messages, people saying we just find it so comforting because it is a reminder. When you've been through a difficult time, and perhaps, if we're related to the pandemic, we were being told to isolate. And I was there sort of going, I wish they didn't use the word isolate, because people will listen and cling to the word and they will just shut themselves off. And that's not what we want.
Well, I know a lot of people who, especially my mother, older people, they're scared to actually go out now. They isolated so well, now they don't want to come out. And it's interesting, if I go and see my mother, she's sort of like, she didn't even let me in the house, just in case. But listen, you mentioned Bob, he's there now. I'm delighted to say that Bob Golding, the English actor and voice artist, he joins me now. Bob, welcome. Hello, Bob. This is a surprise to Stacey. She wasn't expecting you.
I wasn't. What a lovely surprise. Thank you.
Now, listen, Bob.
Hi, Stacey.
Hi.
You can't get rid of me.
So, Bob, talk to us about this then, because just name a few things about this, because I know you played Eric Morecambe in the feature film Mr. Sunshine, didn't you? And you were the voice of Milo in The Tweenies, weren't you? And also you've been in Thomas the Tank Engine. Why did you decide to sort of get on board with Stacey on this campaign?
Oh, I mean, I think nothing to do with anything you just mentioned, because I'm a human being, and I think we all have mental health in as much as we have physical health as well, and it's very important that we address any issues that may come up. More important now than ever, and I guess the pandemic brought that to a front. Certainly on a personal level, I'd never really experienced anything sort of to do with my mental health before, and then when the pandemic hit, I'm a father of 4 kids, suddenly working in the creative industry, which was shutting down day by day by day by day. We were the first out and the last back, and so the stresses and the worries of that were mounting. And as a bloke in the UK, we're kind of taught, really, we've been sort of conditioned, if you like, over the years to keep things to ourselves. and people like Stacey. And really, it's not just up to Stacey, really, it's up to all of us to be able to talk to each other and get these problems that we may have to the forefront, and communicate.
Now, how did you hear about Stacey and the charity?
Stacey approached me, obviously, because my connections with the pantomime. And she said, actually, I'm doing a sort of giving out coffee and awareness day by the cathedral in St Albans. So I went down and joined her, giving out balloons and coffee, and we spent what was supposed to be a couple of hours, spent the whole day there, and it was fantastic. And I thought I'd quite like to get involved. After going through what I'd gone through as well with my anxiety, I just thought this would be a nice opportunity to kind of give back. And, I think that's pretty much what we all should do. We shouldn't rely on organisations all the time, but how amazing that people like Stacey and It's OK to Say exist.
Yeah, and how amazing for you to support it as well. Bob, thank you for coming in and joining us and telling us about your involvement in the charity. That's Bob Golding. He's an actor. He's done so many things. Wow. So there you go. A little surprise for you there. You weren't expecting him there.
That was so lovely. Thank you.
No, but obviously your charity's doing well. One person making such a difference to so many people.
Thank you. And thanks to people, like Bob, who are in great positions where they can help spread the word even further. And it's thanks to Bob that it's Chesney Hawkes, Gareth Gates and Margaret Droich and a whole host of other celebrities that have been able to record encouraging messages to people. So I'm really grateful. And I consider myself to be in a very, very special position because I'm trusted by the community. We have lots of people fundraising for us. And
very impressive.
It's amazing. And it's been a lovely journey to go from a campaign that was launched with the Hearts ad to then bring on board our local business community to help me turn, with no business background at all, to help me turn the campaign into a charity. And it's what people wanted, and it's what I wanted as well, so it's lovely.
Well, Stacey, look, congratulations and keep everything going. If you had a message, a very brief, short, succinct message to people suffering with mental health, what would you say to them?
Focusing on emotions is that remember that emotions are fleeting and they will change. And sometimes they can last for 3 months, but your situation is not going to be like this forever. But as someone who knows what it's like to feel the benefits of having help and adding value to my life, don't hesitate to reach out for help. Because that's what we're all here for. And there's more and more professionals now than there ever has been. So do it.
If people want to find out more about your charity, where can they find you?
You can go straight to the website. We're all over social media, but you can go straight to the website, which is www.itsokaytosay.org.uk.
Well, Stacey, thank you so much for joining me. It's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been so nice. And thank you, Bob.
It's good of Bob, isn't it? Well, that is, of course, Stacey Turner. She's the CEO of It's OK to Say. That was Difficult Conversations. We've got more of that next week. But coming up, it is the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should police pander to Pride? Organisers of today's Pride Festival in London asked the Met Police not to attend the event in uniform. Now, this is due to their concerns that there is homophobia throughout the force. So I'm asking, should police pander to Pride? First, let's get an update with your weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be showery for many, with the heaviest and most frequent rain across Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in the southwest of England, and after a pretty wet morning for some due to a front passing through, you can expect showers to end the day. In the southeast, that front will be moving across, but it has broken up somewhat, so many will just see some showery rain for a time. Across Wales, we can expect further showers, perhaps a few heavy ones too. They'll start to ease as we go through the evening and especially overnight. There'll also be showers across the West Midlands as we go through the evening. They should be fairly scattered, so there'll be some drier and perhaps brighter breaks in between. It looks like there'll be fewer showers around the northeast, but still a few though, so although it's looking mostly dry here, don't rule out some rain at times. A wet picture across much of Scotland. Here the showers are likely to merge into longer spells of rain, especially across western parts with the risk of some thunder. A scattering of showers for Northern Ireland as well. Some heavy ones are likely in the east at first, then there may be a drier spell for a time. Further showery rain is expected overnight, especially for Scotland and Northern Ireland, whilst England and Wales should be drier. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's fast approaching 25 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. You can even stream us on YouTube. But right now it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should police pander to pride? Now, thousands of people have gathered in London today to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Pride. But in the run-up to the event, the organisers said that uniformed police were not welcome. Now, this is over concerns that there is very serious evidence of police homophobia within the Met. These claims come from the way the Met Police handled the murder of the 4 gay men by Stephen Port. In response to this, the Met said a number of incidents in recent times have damaged trust and confidence in policing, especially amongst the LGBT+ community, and we've decided upon a different approach for the Pride 50th anniversary parade in London. So for my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police pander to pride? Parm Sandhu is the former Chief Superintendent of the Met Police, and she joins me now. Parm, thank you very much for joining.
Good afternoon.
Now, first of all, police not wearing the uniform, it feels to me they're pandering to a narrative. What's your view on all of this?
I think that what's happened in recent times is that trust and confidence in policing has been affected, and affected badly. But when we're talking about police not attending in uniform, police officers are still working and they are in uniform. These were police officers who were planning to march as participants within the march. So they are the ones who've been asked not to attend in uniform, but to attend as members of the public in their own clothes or costumes or whatever they want to wear. So it's not a question of the Pride organisers are saying police officers cannot police the event, because they still have to do that. There's two different things there. But what they've said is do not come along to the march and march along in uniform.
There will be police who are in uniform at the event, but if they go on the march, they can't be. But those working on the march, marching, are police still, and they're working as police officers. Is that's what you're saying?
No, what it is in recent years, police officers have formed a contingent themselves, so a group of them who want to support the Pride March will march along, but they'll be wearing their uniform, but they won't be on duty. So they will be marching along, and those are the officers who have been asked to attend, but not to wear their uniforms. So
Are they working or they're not working? They're not working.
No, they're not working. So the ones who are working, who are supposed to be in uniform anyway, they will be there in uniform. So the Pride organisers and the Met Police have agreed that they won't have this group of officers from all parts of the country who have been allowed to march off duty in their uniforms. So those are the ones who have been elected.
So something kicks off, just say something kicks off, those police who are marching but not in a uniform, but they wouldn't have been wearing a uniform anyway if they were going, or would they not have been allowed to go? I'm confused.
They were doing it to express solidarity as police officers, so they were off duty. So it's like me putting on my uniform, I'm off duty, but I want to support the Pride group. So I will march along, alongside people who are drinking, celebrating, everything else, but I'm not on duty. So it's not the people who are lining the march. These are people who are off duty, wearing a uniform, who are expressing their solidarity to the Pride march itself.
So would they
normally... And they're the ones who've been asked to come along. They can still go along, but not in uniform. And that is because that trust and confidence in policing has been eroded so much with so many different issues. So that's why they've said, don't come in uniform, but come along.
So normally, would they have come along in uniform, showing solidarity, but they wouldn't have been working?
That's right.
So
that's right.
Right. So if something kicks off, so there's some trouble at Pride, will these police officers who are no longer in uniform, do they now join in as police to try and stop this, or can they not do anything because they're not in uniform? And what would happen under those circumstances?
A police officer can put themselves on duty 24 hours a day, whether they're supposed to be working or not. So if you're coming home on a train and you're a police officer, you finished for the day and you see a fight or an incident, you are supposed to put yourself back on duty and deal with that incident. So those officers who are there in a private capacity, if they see something illegal or some violence, they have to intervene, they have to get involved.
Well, won't that cause confusion? Just say that something does kick off, then you've got these people who say they're police, but they're not in a police uniform, and they're at the march. They've decided they're going to turn into police, and then, that puts, I think, doesn't that put some sort of different spin on it? Because I could say I'm a police officer, I'm off duty, I'm just not wearing my uniform, I'm going to join in now. And the other officers who don't know the police officers who've come along to this, who are dressed not as police officers, something kicks off, then they start joining in. Won't the officers themselves be confused as to whether these people are police officers or not?
When you put yourself on duty, you're supposed to show your warrant card and identify yourself. So, for example, if you're coming home on the train and you see a robbery, you would have to show your warrant card, identify who you are, and you would be expected to intervene in that robbery, and that is expected. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're at a Pride March or whether you're at a different incident. If you're off duty, if you saw an incident and you didn't get involved, you would be criticised, and it would be wrong, because how can police officers, whether they're in uniform or not in uniform, whether they're on duty or in their private time, if they see something awful happening in front of them, you would expect them to get involved. And I know what you're saying about how do I know if they're police officers, especially because of what happened with Sarah Everard.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
That was one. Yeah, I could see you were going there, Nana.
I wasn't going to say it.
That is an awful incident that resulted in a tragedy. But that isn't the norm. And nowadays, you can actually phone up and say, look, there's this guy here. He's saying he's an off-duty police officer. He's got a warrant card. And you can actually check the identity of that individual.
What about, will the police officers that are working, they're not going to be wearing rainbow laces or anything like that. Do they have to stick to the strict protocol of what the police uniform is? Are they allowed to wear rainbow laces if they're working? Are they doing any of that thing? Or do they have to stick rigidly to the police uniform?
Well, they're supposed to stick to the police uniform because there is a standard uniform. And if they've been asked by the organisers and the Met Police have agreed that they won't participate, then they need to be in a normal police uniform. So they shouldn't really be showing anything that supports that march, really.
What's your view as well? I just want to ask about police taking the knee and the sort of rainbow laces and things like that. In your view, Do you think police officers should, show some sort of affinity to the thing that they're marching or policing? Or, in your view, do you think they should remain neutral, or perhaps you have a completely different view altogether?
Well, police officers are not supposed to be political. They're not supposed to show their preference or their feelings towards a particular group of people. For example, you may go on a march where you agree with the sentiments or you don't agree with the sentiments. So you are supposed to be impartial. But at the same time, you have got police officers who are human, and sometimes those emotions, and especially with things that have happened, and they may have been media driven or there may have been tragedies. So, sometimes as a human, you do want to show your solidarity. And I think that frontline officers have to balance that, and they have to take into account what is happening at that occasion and how it could be seen either by the public or the media. And it is about that trust and confidence. But, police officers are human, and they are supposed to empathise, and they are supposed to understand the emotions and the feelings of the people that they're supposed to be policing.
Well, Palm Sandu, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks, Nana.
Thank you. That's Palm Sandu. She's the former Chief Superintendent of the Metropolitan Police. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, we'll continue with our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should police pander to pride? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel. Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kearse and journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 5:33. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The MP Chris Pincher, who's under investigation over allegations of sexual assault, says he's seeking professional medical support. The former Deputy Chief Whip resigned from his post on Thursday after being accused of groping two men at a private members' club while drunk. Boris Johnson suspended Mr Pincher from the Conservative Party yesterday after the parliamentary watchdog launched an investigation. The Foreign Office says it condemns the exploitation of prisoners of war and civilians for political purposes. It's after Russian state media claimed two more British men have been charged with carrying out mercenary activities by a Moscow-backed separatist region in Ukraine. Aid worker Dylan Healy and military volunteer Andrew Hill are believed to be held in the self-styled Donetsk People's Republic. That's according to the Russian news agency TASS. However, there's been no independent verification of the charges. Hundreds of people have gathered for a vigil dedicated to Zara Alina, who was killed in East London last week. Members of the 35-year-old's family led the crowd as they traced the walk home she would have taken after a night out in Ilford. The law graduate was found with multiple serious injuries after she was attacked minutes from her front door in the early hours of Sunday. And travel businesses have welcomed measures to help airlines prevent last-minute holiday cancellations this summer. The government will allow one-off amnesty on airport slots, used to manage capacity and take-off schedule to enable airlines to plan ahead and minimise travel disruption. British Airways says it welcomes the measures, whilst Heathrow Airport says it's good news for passengers. And pride parades are taking place across the UK today. Crowds wearing face paint, glitter, jewels and sequins are taking part in Pride in London, the first since the outbreak of the pandemic. More than 1 million people have descended on the capital, marking the 50th anniversary of the UK's first ever Pride parade. On TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. We'll get back to Nana in just a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
So it is 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. Good afternoon. If you just joined me, welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. We're live on TV, online and on your digital radio. Now, this hour, it is time for my Great British Debate, and I'm asking, should police pander to pride? Uniformed police officers have been asked not to join the annual London Pride March today by the organisers of the event. Now, it follows accusations of very serious evidence of police homophobia within the Metropolitan Police. In response, they said that they recognise some incidents of damaged trust and confidence in policing. So for my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should police pander to pride? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, comedian Leo Kearse, and journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlin. Right, I'm going to start with Matthew. What do you think? Police.
First of all, I think the vast majority of police officers do a really good job and go into policing for the right reasons. They're brave and they keep us safe. So that's the first thing to say, because I think when things go wrong, quite rightly, the spotlight is shone on the police, and they don't get as much of a good press, perhaps, as NHS workers and the fire brigade. So I think that's the first important, because you can imagine just how demoralising it would be. You go home after putting your life on the line, helping out with some really tricky situation, and then you watch the news and people are slagging off the police.
Creating a picture here. Now, what's the second thing? This is the first thing.
The second thing is that the Met have got massive problems. There's absolutely no doubt about it. They've had racism problems, they've got homophobia problems, they've got all sorts of problems, and that's leaving out the despicable story about Cousins.
Yeah.
When you say, should the Met pander to Pride, I personally think it was a mistake on the part of Pride to suggest that the police officers shouldn't come dressed in their uniform, because it is not the fault of gay, lesbian, transsexual, transgender police officers that there is a problem of homophobia in the force. So I think it sent out a good signal to say we are inclusive and we are behind you, we're on your side, on the side of minorities, and I think it's a shame that they won't be visually represented this year in the way they have been pre-pandemic.
What do you think, Leo?
I used to work as a criminal intelligence analyst with the Met Police, and ever since I left, the organisation seems to have fallen apart.
God, it must be because they lost you.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm Batman or anything, but I mean the evidence, the statistics are there to suggest that I am. But yeah, I mean the police, Pride, Peter Tatchell and other people involved in Pride are saying that the police have dropped the ball, and there are terrible instances such as Stephen Port, but his murders. Those were murders that weren't investigated properly by the police, almost comparable to the terrible situation with Stephen Lawrence. But I think the Met has really learnt from that. That was quite a while ago. We're talking 8 years ago. So I think the Met has really learnt from those mistakes, and I think the Met obviously now makes a huge effort to reach out and not discriminate based on sexuality. And in fact, most of the time the Met seems to be putting a lot of effort into painting everything they've got rainbow coloured. and putting the transgender triangle on it. So, you know, I think it's strange for the Met to be singled out for criticism in this way.
OK, Calvin.
Yeah, it's interesting that Pride are discriminating against the police, isn't it, and showing that they're not actually that inclusive because they're quite exclusive. They don't want the police with them. I don't think it's up to Pride to dictate what the police do or how they act, but I don't think the police should be turning up in their uniform to Pride. I don't think they should have rainbow lace on. They should be in their correct sanctioned uniform. They shouldn't be twerking, they shouldn't be gyrating, they shouldn't be dancing along. They should be authority figures there to prevent crime and to arrest criminals.
But Calvin, remember that the police, of course, police us by consent, and that's a really good thing in this country. So I live in Notting Hill, have done all of my life. I love going to Notting Hill Carnival. I went on my dad's shoulders when I was 2. I still go. And when the police officers are dancing at Carnival, I think that is a positive thing. Why? Because it is important for communities that have traditionally felt alienated by the police to feel that they are actually and can be on their side. So I don't entirely agree with that.
No, I think you're wrong. I don't want to see a police officer twerking and then suddenly a crime's taking place. He's in the middle of a twerk and then he's got to stop.
No.
I'm just saying, I don't want to see that.
Well, yeah.
I want to see somebody, if they are doing the job that they're doing, I want to have confidence and faith in them that they are focusing on the job. It'd be like me just doing the Macarena whilst you two are all sort of debating, and then when it comes to me,
Do it.
No, I'm not, because anybody watching will say, what on earth is that woman doing? Why is she there? So in my view, if you've got a police officer there and he's working as a police officer, then they should be dressed in the police attire. I think it's slightly confusing if they're going and then suddenly something happens and they can change and suddenly become a police officer, because
But as that police officer said, that's true of any area of life.
Yeah, but on this particular event, I think that's a bit odd. I think it would be better that they went and represented the force as police officers. I just think that's a bit. I think it could just end up with. I think you could have problems with it.
Well, and there's going to be police there anyway, in uniform, policing the event, you know, to make sure that, you know, there's no crime committed. And yeah, I think I agree with you. I wouldn't have any problem with the police, you know, putting all this effort and money into painting everything rainbow-coloured and doing all the gender woo-woo if they were bringing crime down.
Exactly.
But at the moment,
That's
crime, violent crime and volume crime, so burglaries and robberies and thefts are shooting up.
Look, I have some sympathy on that. I have no problem with the police showing solidarity for minorities. What I do have a problem with is that shouldn't be political, in my view. What I do have a problem with, and I think Calvin's on my side on this, is that there's that pro-EU demonstrator who has always got his loud hailer on in Parliament. And I find him intensely annoying. I actually think he ruins the experience for a lot of people who are just going about their business. And because of these new laws under Priti Patel and Boris Johnson, he had his loudspeaker confiscated this week. They had between 10 and 20 officers involved in trying to shut up one man. I've been burgled twice. They haven't been resolved. The vast majority of burglaries in this country are not solved. So you don't need 10 police officers to quieten down demonstration. It shows what a weak government we've got.
Well, no, it doesn't show. I don't think that necessarily is a weak government. I think it's a weak force. But that could be as a result of repeated governments making nonsense policies that have shrunk the force and got rid of all the police stations.
Well, that's the Tory government, yeah. Well, they cut 20,000 police officers from 2010 to 2020.
Well, yeah, but remember there's been a Tory government, but also there was a pact, wasn't there, between the Tory government and also the Liberal Democrats. So it was kind of a.
The Lib Dems getting a terrible kick.
Yeah, but it's a coalition. But it was a coalition government, though, wasn't it? And Sadiq Khan is Labour.
Responsibility for policing in London.
Yeah. And he's Labour. So what do you say to that, Matt?
Sadiq Khan has to deal with the police officers that he is given. So the government cut 20,000 plus officers over a 10-year period, and that's going to have a knock-on effect on Sadiq Khan. I'm not a particular fan or enemy of Sadiq Khan, but the responsibility for the numbers of officers on our street are the Tories. They've been in power for 12 years.
Well, it sounds like we don't have any spare officers to dress up in rainbow flags and do all the gender woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, terrible. Calvin?
Look, I think pride isn't something for anyone to be celebrating, never mind the police.
Why
the whole
not?
idea
Why
of
not?
promiscuity and degeneracy and celebrating sexuality. Sexuality should be something private. I don't go along with it. I don't think our police should be getting involved with it. I don't think it's a place for children.
Do you not celebrate your
family-friendly event? I think it's a shame that it's promoted along the streets of London.
I'm sure you're a man of more moderate views in that you associate pride and the celebration of of being gay and lesbian and trans in a world that had previously criminalised that, and you say you equate that to promiscuity.
Absolutely. Have you seen the Pride events? I've seen them gyrating. I've seen the body parts out, the anatomy all over the place, twerking in front of young children. I think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's age appropriate for young people at all.
Do you associate homosexuality with promiscuity?
No, pride. Don't stop trying to conflate it.
I'm asking you.
That's a very disingenuous...
You're on the same platform. I'm asking you to clarify what you mean.
I've very clearly said pride is promiscuous. Pride is celebrating sexuality. I've not said anything about homosexuality.
Can I just bring it back as well? Because actually the organisers have said that, look, guys, we don't want this to be a super spreader event for monkeypox because of the closeness of everyone gets quite close to these things. So, you know. But anyway.
Would you rather have a shame month?
I'd rather have a month that wasn't named after a sin.
Right, this is It's Nothing Without You and Your Views. Let's welcome our great British voice to the show, your opportunity to join in and tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Cambridge? Yeah, let's go to Cambridge, lovely place. Let's have a chat with Coral. Coral Fordham, she's there in Cambridge. Coral, what do you think? What do you think? Are the police pandering to Pride?
There's some excellent points being made, so and so many I agree with. Like one of your panel, I was burgled and we didn't have a response either. And as another one of your panellists said, but they are going along to Pride, they've got time to be there. The police are there to uphold law and order. They wear a uniform, they should be proud in that uniform. They should not be dancing around making wombles of themselves, quite frankly. They are there to do a job, end of. And if you do pander and you do as any activist group is requesting of you or asking of you, all of the others are going to ask other things as well. So they have to stick to what they do and what they're paid to do, and that is to withhold law and order. Very simple.
Did that, we would all be happy, wouldn't we, Coral? We'd all be very happy.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Coral.
Pleasure.
It's true, isn't it? If they did that, we'd be happy. Then they could do all the other stuff. But if you don't do what you're meant to be doing, then forget it. Coral, thank you very much. Thank you so much. That's Coral in Cambridge. Now, today, we've been asking, should the police pander to Pride? And lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Bill says the Mayor of London should be making sure that the police fight crime and not march in a parade. That's what they're paid to do. Pamela says, no, the police shouldn't pander to anyone. This has caused a lack of respect for the police. Agreed. I agree with you there. Johnny says if they want to attend, they should leave their uniforms at home. Marion says, no, the police wear a uniform that gives them a clear identity and they should wear it with pride and not virtue signal to any group. Thomas has been in touch. He says, here's a radical idea. Just police. I'm with you. Charlie says the police should be neutral. If they want to attend out of uniforms, that is fine. And Martin says, I'm gay and have been a police officer for 19 years. I am disgusted, he says, by the Pride ban. Wonderful. Janice, will do you last then. The police should not pander to anyone. They are paid to do a job and should wear the uniform with pride. Right, let's move on. I've got another story that caught my eye today. It was the issue of Scottish independence, and it's reared its head once again. Surprise, surprise. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has set October 2023 as her target for yet another referendum, even though the last one was once in a decade or a lifetime or whatever. She knows that the Scottish Parliament can't do it unilaterally and legally. And also, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said that he will not be forming a pact with the SNP. Well, that depends on whether he is still the leader of the time. Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm going to start with you, Leo Kearse.
Yeah, I mean, I think Keir, this is a good example of Keir not doing something which could get him votes, could boost Labour's prospects in Scotland, which he desperately needs because Labour, along with Lib Dems, are pretty much done in Scotland, get 0 votes. Considering they used to get so many votes there, but he's showing the rest of the UK that he does actually believe in Britain and he doesn't want to break up the UK.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not. I'm pleased with him. What do you think?
Yeah, the same. He's showing himself as a unionist, as a patriot. He hasn't always done that, so I'm pleased to see him doing it finally.
Matthew,
I don't think Labour can win the general election outright without Scotland, and Labour unfortunately lost Scotland quite some time ago. I think what will happen at the next general election is that there will be a sort of informal pact between the Lib Dems, who we've spoken a lot about, and Labour. And it won't be endorsed by the party leaders, but they will turn a blind eye to it. And I think the Tories will be beaten, and I think we'll have a coalition government, but this time Labour and the Liberal Democrats. Don't forget, Ed Miliband partly lost the election in 2015 because people feared a pact between Labour and the Scottish Nationalists.
No, he lost the election because, again, they picked the wrong leader. They should have picked his brother David. Right, it's time for the quickfire quiz. It's part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. I'm joined now by Reverend Calvin Robinson, also comedian Leo Kearse, and journalist and broadcaster Matthew Stadlen. Right, let's hear your buzzers. Calvin, your buzzer. Leo, your buzzer. Matthew, your buzzer. Right, remember, please don't press the buzzers before I finish the question, otherwise you'll be immediately disqualified. Right, here's the question. Please play along at home. A mother was left horrified after finding something unpleasant in her oldie shopping bag. But what did she find? Was it A, a half-eaten chicken leg, B, a dead lizard, or C, a leaflet for a dead cult? Leo.
Is it C, a leaflet for a death cult?
For a death cult, let's see.
Oh.
It's B. No, it's a dead lizard. You got that wrong. No,
it's better than a live one, surely.
Well, yes, of course. But a woman who wishes to remain anonymous told Black Country Live that she had to throw away a £20 worth of food after it was contaminated by dry, dead parts of the animal. Aldi offered her £100 free as a voucher, and in response to the incident, they said, our supplier has robust processes in place, meaning incidences like this are very rare. What's the worst thing you found in your shopping, Leo, seeing as you got that wrong?
Pineapple on a pizza.
Calvin.
I don't think I've found anything weird in my shopping, no.
Really? What about you?
No, fortunately not. I'm with Calvin on this one.
Right, let's go on to question 2. Right, this is a true or false. Last week, a puppy was rescued from a vending machine in Tennessee. True or false? Leo?
True.
Anybody else?
True.
Matthew thinks it's true. Calvin?
False.
But press your buzzer, I can't accept.
False.
Even if you're right, I can't accept it. It's false, Calvin, but I'll give him the point. Go on, then. It was actually a kitten. Firefighters responded to the Walmart shop in the American state of Tennessee after reports of a cat meowing in a vending machine. Oh, that's so cute, isn't it? They had to put it to safety. Do you think this is a waste of emergency resources?
Yeah, because it would have cost like about $1 to just buy it from the vending machine.
Very good. Very good. I'll leave it on that one. Question 3. A hamster has returned to Earth alive and well after travelling into the stratosphere on a flying balloon. But how far did it travel? Up to the nearest mile. Nearest mile wins. Press your buzzer to answer. Calvin.
10,000.
Leo.
5,000.
14 miles.
Let me see. 14 miles!
Wow. That's creepy. How do you know that?
Matt Stadler, do you have a point?
Did someone say 50,000 miles?
He did, yes. That's a long way. The hamster was actually placed in an airtight cabin, 60 centimetres high and 50 centimetres in diameter, and was successfully rescued from the sea off Japan. It was sent up by an experiment by a company that wants to start commercially sending people into space in balloons. But would you travel in the stratosphere in a balloon, Matt?
No.
Calvin?
Yeah, why not?
Leo?
If there's hamsters there, yeah.
That's a bit odd. Right, let's go to the next question. Because a man from Mexico, from a town in Mexico, has married a member of the animal kingdom. But what kind of animal did he tie the knot with?
No, he hasn't.
What a weirdo.
He hasn't married an animal.
Oh, Calvin hates this.
Is it A, a crocodile, B, an iguana, or C, a tiger? Press your buzzers. Leo?
Is it an iguana?
Press your buzzer. Any advances? Matt?
I think it's an iguana.
He's not married any of them. It's stupid.
I think it was an Anglican ceremony. I think I read that.
No, it was a crocodile, actually. Did nobody say that? Nobody said that. Nobody got that point. You could have had that, Calvin, had you been prepared to take part. Right, well, Victor Hugo Sosa, he's the mayor of a small fishing village in Mexico. He has married a crocodile in part of a centuries-old ritual. She was in a white dress during the ceremony and had her snout tied shut to avoid unwanted snapping. Should people be allowed to marry animals?
I think the question should be, should we be allowed to strap our bride's snout shut?
I think. Ooh, Calvin, you'd say no. I couldn't work out whether you were saying was it sex that is a sin or gay sex that is
Look,
a sin?
can we stop? Answer the question.
No.
Because they'd be allowed to marry animals.
I was saying the bride is a sin.
Right, hang on, wait. So listen, we're heading towards...
Why do you always bring it back to homosexuality? Is there something you want to tell us, Matthew?
Well, are you asking whether I'm gay?
No, I'm just saying, why do you want to bring it back to homosexuality?
Or transsexual?
We've got 30 seconds.
I'm marrying a woman next Saturday.
Was she always a woman?
Right,
as far as I know.
On today's show, we've been asking, have the Tories been in power for too long? According to our Twitter poll, 31% of you say yes, they have. 69% of you say no. Thank you so much to my panel. Calvin Robinson. Calvin, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Also, Leo Kearse, thank you so much to you.
Thank you.
And also, Matthew Stadlen, thank you so much. And as ever, at home, thank you to you for your company. Joining me tomorrow, we've got Danny Kelly and Lizzie Cundy. But now I'll leave you with the weather. Enjoy.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be showery for many with the heaviest and most frequent rain across Scotland. Let's take a look at the details. Starting off in the southwest of England, and after a pretty wet morning for some due to a front passing through, you can expect showers to end the day. In the southeast, that front will be moving across, but it has broken up somewhat, so many will just see some showery rain for a time. Across Wales, we can expect further showers, perhaps a few heavy ones too. They'll start to ease as we go through the evening and especially overnight. There'll also be showers across the West Midlands as we go through the evening. They should be fairly scattered, so there'll be some drier and perhaps brighter breaks in between. It looks like there'll be fewer showers around the northeast, but still a few though, so although it's looking mostly dry here, don't rule out some rain at times. A wet picture across much of Scotland. Here the showers are likely to merge into longer spells of rain, especially across western parts with the risk of some thunder. A scattering of showers for Northern Ireland as well. Some heavy ones are likely in the east at first, then there may be a drier spell for a time. Further showery rain is expected overnight, especially for Scotland and Northern Ireland, whilst England and Wales should be drier. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable, and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good evening. Welcome along to Neil Oliver Live.